Mathabela. I'm from the 1 in 9 campaign, which is a feminist collective and organization based in South Africa. We work with survivors of sexual violence in the country, and I mean we work in 5 areas. We have like media advocacy. We do work in solidarity with other organizations, partner organizations that we work with. We do work around legal transformation, which is like helping survivors, navigate the criminal justice system. So around art specifically, so the organization uses a lot of media, right, in terms of advocating for the rights of survivors, and we play around with different forms of art. We use performance art. We have a studio as well, an advocacy media production studio, where we produce our own posters, just to make sure that the messages of women are interpreted exactly how they want to say their messaging. So we do our own posters, we do our own t-shirts, we do our own documentaries which we use in political discussions, just to raise consciousness around issues that are affecting us as women in the country. We disrupted the Johannesburg Gay Parade, which is an LGBTI space, right? It was started as a political vehicle to make sure that the issues of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender and intersex community is heard, and that it's a space where we can also share knowledge and learn as LGBTI people. And I think over the years what had happened is that the space started becoming commercialized. You started having a whole lot of big companies sort of taking over the space, over organizations which were bringing, like civil society organizations that were bringing information to the people. And we had a conversation with a lot of the women, lesbian women that we work with, around what do we think is, like what our own analysis of the space and how the space has changed, and if the space is still relevant in terms of assisting us in the struggle, in the LGBTI struggle. And the answer to all of that is that we found it very problematic. A lot of racism, a lot of classism, and it was something that we needed to sort of address. And as this collective, which always addresses those issues, we felt that it was time for us to sort of take ownership and approach the space to say the space is no longer conducive for the same bodies that it's supposed to be protecting. So we created these life-size bodies that represented like different identities that are oppressed, right? So like foreigners in the country, like your lesbian women, trans bodies, which are oppressed in different ways, right? So we took these identities and we put them on different t-shirts that were represented on these different bodies, and we carried those because they're like a representation of who we are, right? And the bodies that we feel are being oppressed. And we disrupted the gay parade, and the disruption was mainly to say a lot of women, lesbian women, were being murdered in the townships in South Africa, and that was not coming across in the space. And we felt that we wanted at least a minute of silence where that could be addressed, and we could think about what the gay parade was supposed to be addressing in the first place. And what ended up happening in that space is that we were faced with exactly the same things that we were trying to fight. We were faced with a lot of racism. We had some of the white security guards trying to run us over with bikes. The committee, or the person that was leading the committee, told us to go back to our townships because this was her route. And I mean, those are all the problematic things, that when you say something is your route, which is supposed to be a representation of a community, it's already problematic. So issues of ownership. The space is in it's in a suburb, right? In a very high class area where a lot of black, lesbian or LGBTI people have to travel to get to that space. So there's a lot of money that's being spent in actually being able to access the space. And there were issues of safety as well, right? So because the space is too far from where people live, people have to take public transport to get to the space late when it's finished at night. And so these were the issues we were trying to raise with them, to say, bring the protest back to where it started, which was where the problems were in our cities, right? Where gay people are being beaten up, where lesbian people are being raped and called names. So we wanted the protest to come back, the march to come back to that particular area and not go to an already, like a place where it's already like it's around capitalism. It's a mall. It's a very known place. People go there to have fun, and those issues are not felt there more than they are in the space where a lot of the community actually travels in. So we felt that the space wasn't really dealing with the issues. Solidarity is a very important tool for us in feminist movement building, because if we identify individuals, different collectives or organizations, like-minded organizations that do the kind of work that we work in, organizations that work with women, and looking at intersectionalities. So if you work with HIV/AIDS organizations, if you work with LGBTI organizations, if you work with organizations that focus on women migrants, you work with organizations that work with sex workers, then you start looking at the oppression, you start analyzing the oppression of women at the different levels, right? Looking at the intersectionalities. And I think that's one of the things that we're trying to push in our movement, is to move away from a single issue-based type of analysis and focus on the intersectionalities, because our identities, I'm not just a lesbian woman, right? I am a black woman, I am a lesbian woman, I am a middle class woman. We have multiple identities. You're a survivor. I'm an HIV positive woman. I am all these things, and therefore you cannot separate those oppressions, because it is because of those different identities that you face the oppressions that you face. And I think when we start looking at women's lives through those intersectionalities, it makes it easier to start looking and how we then move forward and start advocating for the rights of women. And how we then smash patriarchy, because patriarchy uses all of those areas of oppression on women's bodies.